At what stage right now is the Hutch Blackwell investigation? How many staff members have been interviewed by this, former players, and I guess what's the status of that right now?
I think Gary probably can give you specifics better. I'm guessing overall at least 100 interviews somewhere in that ballpark. Many of our former players have been interviewed, many of our current players as well. I don't know how many of the guys sitting over here have been, but I would guess maybe even all three of them. So my impression is they've done a very thorough job of talking to former players, current players. I believe most of our staff, if not all of our staff, I haven't asked, but I think most of the guys have been visited with. And I visited with the group this week. So I think they're coming down to the end here. My sense was they're hoping to gather all the information. Hopefully by the end of this week, it's kind of just a rough target. And then how they proceed from there, I can't give you a timetable on that. But it's something we certainly welcomed. It's a chance for us to elaborate a little bit, answer questions that they may have, and give them some insight, I think, to the questions that they had in front of them. And they had a good thorough list of questions I can answer to them.
Kirk, you referenced a few times last month about the Diversity Task Force report that came back last year. Have you read that full report or just the summary that is posted publicly?
Yeah, you know, I saw your question, and full disclosure on that. I assume it's a full report. I don't know if there's a secret full report. It's pretty thorough, the one that I had.
Okay.
Do you have any idea how many pages of the full one?
Well, we only got a summary report when we filed the FOIA.
How many pages was that, if I may ask? 5. Yeah, I think ours was a little bit more extensive.
Okay.
Than I read. So yes.
Did you go back and look at that all since this?
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
Like since the last month when stuff came back, and what'd you take out of that?
Well, I'd frame it this way. You know, we met last year with a group of players in August as a result of that. And we made some changes on that, and they appeared, in my mind, to be significant. And I think the players were happy with the changes we made. But the best way I can frame it is this. So, you know, I think what we did was good. I'll give you a full disclosure on this. I dropped the ball because I talked to the group about coming back either the bye week or right after the season. And in December, I failed to do that. We didn't do it during the bye week. In December, I failed to do that. We had an unusual month of December, as you recall. We played on the 27th, and for whatever reason, our calendar was a week shorter than normal. So I bypassed it. Part of the reason I did, you know, and it kind of ties in with, I mentioned a blind spot last press conference. You know, I felt we had a pretty healthy environment, pretty healthy culture last December. Coming off the field in California, I felt pretty good about things. And when we left here on March 13th, I felt really good about our positioning and getting ready to start spring practice. So, you know, a lot of things in the world have changed since then, which, you know, obviously, good reason to go back and read that report a couple times and look at review the recommendations. But I think the biggest thing, quite frankly, for me personally, and probably a lot of people in America, I think the way we, you know, look at things in our society right now, it's probably been a little different since Memorial Day. I think a lot of people probably have a little different lens on maybe some of the things I certainly heard last August. I'll put it that way, reference it that way. So what it has done is really prompted and motivated more conversation, more direct conversation. I think really constructive conversation. You know, we wanted to hear what the players were thinking, what they were saying, what they were feeling. And we tried to go through them in an itemized way. And two things, we're not done yet. Talking about what we need to talk about on the plate right now. And I think the other key component, as it pertains to us short term, is continue the discussion. Don't make the mistake I made last December. All right, you know, find time. Let's keep addressing these things. Let's keep the thermometer, ask better questions. And then the other aspect of this whole thing, in my opinion, is more longer-term things. You know, what direct training do we need as a staff? Who are the people? And I've got a couple resources I want to tap into. Actually, talk to both of them tomorrow. What are our next steps as a staff? What are the things we need to be thinking about long-term for our program? And I'll chime in here. The advisory committee's been really good. We've had good discussion with that group as well. That's a whole separate body, but good discussion.
That's the former players?
Former players, right. And, you know, good discussion, good thought about, you know, how do we better prepare our players for life after football? Because that's the ultimate goal here. We want them to do really well on campus, but how do we better position our guys to finish strong, and then, you know, be better positioned as they move forward in life. So those are the next things that are down the road for us. We can't address those on the short term, but I think we need to get those discussions going here a little bit. Yeah. Yes.
Kirk, one of the questions you had, or one of the concerns you had, was your guys' training and being the player safety side of things with the pandemic and everything. Has the training been okay? Has the player development been okay?
Yeah, you know, I was remiss, I kind of glossed that over, but one detail I just skipped, which I appreciate bringing that up, Tom. I think the single biggest challenge for our strength and conditioning staff is keeping track of levels. And what I mean by that, we've experienced some cases of COVID in the program, which, you know, obviously nobody's minimizing that. But the other side effect is the tracing, all right, and the quarantines for immediate contacts. So that got to be, you know, I'm okay in Algebra 1, that got to be Algebra 3. And for our guys to really keep track of where people are at. And I think as we move forward, that's going to be really a key concern, because we're looking at, actually tomorrow, in our original plan, tomorrow is going to be the end of training for the summer. And then next Friday being the target date. We'll have 2 supplementary periods next Monday, Tuesday for guys that have missed X amount of workouts to help elevate their level of training. And then when we start the phase, the 6-week phase, week 6, week 5, we're still going to be doing strength conditioning work. That'll be the prominent focus of what we're doing, 8 hours a week on that. But hopefully when we get to camp on August 7th, we'll have a good gauge of where our players are at physically. Because if we are able to proceed as, you know, business as normal, which is highly debatable right now, or at least, you know, it's a open book. The big issue there is going to be, you know, soft tissue issues, things like that. So a point of emphasis in conversations are weekly team meetings. You know, one thing we've tried to emphasize the last 2 weeks to our players again is, you know, obviously good responsibility away from the facility, but when they're here, a guy comes off quarantine and he's got fresh legs, right? It's like somebody misses practice for a couple of days, they come back, got fresh legs, you think you're fine, but you're not fine. So, you know, listening to what the strength coaches and Tammy Paul and the medical people are telling them about, what is your limit, what's your bar, do that today, stop. Come back tomorrow, we'll just keep building it rather than, you know, doing too much and then run into complications. So, talked to a couple of people, the soft tissue issues after the lockout, I think it was 11. Yep. Just, you know, the percentage went way, way up, and I think that's a huge concern for anybody coaching football right now. Player safety is, you know, just, it's everything in football. And it kind of ties in with COVID also, you know, to talk about masks and all those kinds of things. You know, there was a time our biggest concern this time of year would be heat. So think about a heat and a mask, you know, so how's that equation going to work? And you know, there are a lot of really little details here that are really going to have to really, everybody's going to have to pay really close attention to. There's going to be a lot of discussion moving forward.
Can you characterize you said you talked to the review group, can you characterize your discussion, and was it uncomfortable?
I don't think so. Both members of the review board that I visited with were very professional. They're very prepared, and I thought they had really good questions. And you know, quite frankly, welcomed an opportunity to elaborate and give them more details and things. I'll just leave it at that. But it was a good opportunity, at least, to elaborate and, with all due respect, just take things, you know, from the media surface and get into real details. At least as we, obviously, it's everybody's perspective that was speaking. So I can only speak to my perspective when I spoke. But, you know, when you talk to 100 some people, I'm guessing there's going to be a picture that becomes clear for them. Some things won't be clear, maybe, but hopefully it'll be clear.
Coach, on what you said about the Cyhawk rivalry being a disappointment, considering that, you know, it's one of the biggest events of the year in the state, and what it means for this community, this fans, both programs and fan bases, how much air did it take out of you and your players' season to not play this game?
Yeah, well, you know, I can tell you from my perspective, I've been involved in 30 of them, right? And had no idea in 1981 what it was all about, 0, until we got beat that day. And then I figured it out real quick. It's a big game. So I didn't know much in 1981, not that I'm much smarter now. But it's clear, I've lived in the state now 30 years, going on my 31st. It's a big game in the state, and it's hard to imagine the years it wasn't taking place. You know, what a missed opportunity in a lot of ways. So, you know, it's just unfortunate, but, you know, it's really hard to get emotional or to have a strong feeling about things like anything right now, quite frankly, because there's just nothing that's what we're used to. There's nothing that we can compare this to. So I really think that the key here moving forward, and my focus is the next 5 months, what can we do on a daily basis just to get to the next day, the next week, the next step. And that's kind of where my mind is. I'm acknowledging there's a million variables, and a lot of really smart people are working on a much higher level than I am. So I'll get some marching orders from some people, all of us will. But there's just no way to describe this right now, and we're dealing with what we have to, whatever we can deal with in the smartest and the safest, best way possible. That's really, so it's unfortunate, it's disappointing, but it's just really nothing, I don't know what could have been done to avoid this at this point.
Kirk, I think a couple months ago you talked about the potential for spring, because that was banter at that point. Now it's becoming at least a possibility. What's realistic as far as what you guys could do to play a spring season, and then on top of that try to get a fall?
Sure.
24 games, or is it more like 8 and a 12? I mean, how would that go?
I think to that point, yeah, it certainly would have to be a discussion. First thought on it, I'm sure it's a last resort, I would imagine, for anybody that's making decisions. The best scenario right now is for us to play this fall. But if that becomes a reality that that's not going to take place, then yeah, certainly you have to shift your attention. I would, as a football coach, I think it's realistic. I don't know in the big picture if it is, because there are a lot of complications. And then to your other point, yeah, there's no question in my mind you would have to modify. You'd have to look at how many games you're talking about playing, because we have weather challenges here. I think that's probably the bottom of the list, quite frankly. But what's realistic, what's fair, all those kinds of things, and just talking about hypotheticals. But if we end up playing fall and spring, that would certainly alter what you do in between. So there's just a lot of, it'd be another 12 months of making adjustments and considerations, all those types of things. Hopefully we don't get there.
Are you going to name one people on the advisory group for football players?
We will at some point, Mark. Yeah, it's just, right now I can share this with you. Mike Daniels, I initially said was going to be the committee chair. Mike, they're in the process, I believe, of just expecting their next child. He's got a big family, raising a big family. He's in between jobs. Last time I talked to him, he was actually driving, I believe, from Detroit back to Green Bay. So he's got a lot going on. He cannot participate, and but his input's already been very valuable. We'll continue to tap into him. But he just didn't want the responsibility of being in the weekly meetings right now. Dave Porter has agreed to chair it, and Dave's done a great job. We've had 4, maybe 5 meetings now. Dave's done a wonderful job with that, and a lot of good input. We currently sit at 10, I can share that with you. We've got a wide range of experience, all former players going back to the 70s right on to fairly recent. And I think our focus kind of internally right now is to, let's just focus on issues, and at some point, hopefully we can make a member or two available, maybe to just comment about some of the work that's been done. I'll also share with you that Mike not being able to go, we've discussed potentially making an offer or two to another member or two. So that's in discussion right now, and I think we got a great group, but if we can add to it. Just to that point, we talked about several people the other night. There's like a list of 15 or 20, could have been 35. And I just, I said to the committee, I said, it's like getting asked publicly, who's your favorite child, right? Or when you guys ask me who my favorite all-time Hawkeye is, or favorite win. And there's no answer to it, but they're all really stellar people, really good people.
What's the most impactful thing you've heard in those meetings so far?
I'm sorry?
What's the most impactful thing you've heard in those meetings so far?
I'd probably go back to the first meeting where, really the question was, what's your why? Why are you involved in this? Why do you want to be part of this? And it was just good to hear some guys that have been through the facility, been through our program, talk about their experiences and what their vision is for the program. It's probably been as good as any. But again, a lot of good ideas and a lot of different vantage points and perspectives. There's a wealth of experience on the group, different experiences, which is really good too.
Are there any gauges you're using to know that you're doing the right things on the topic of inclusion? Like, are you trying to make sure what are you doing to make sure that you're on the right page?
Yeah, I think it's ongoing, but one of the very wise member of the advisory committee said at the onset, he said, somebody brought up, what are the concerns, what are And this person who happens to be a coaching veteran said that, so Kirk's team will tell them what the problems are. And we've experienced that. And we know, but it's not a shut door. Like we're, okay, this is what we're looking at. It's going to be an ongoing process, and that's one of the lessons I took. That's a big takeaway for me out of the task force, right? We addressed it in August, put it on the shelf, and that was it. And again, I thought we had a pretty healthy culture in March. You can ask these guys, and back in December. But clearly, what we learned in June was there are more things to be talked about. And I'll just share this with you. From a coaching standpoint, as we sat in a meeting that would have been on June 8th that afternoon, after our first round of meeting with players, one of the coaches talked about measurements can cause stress, all right? And they do. And football is a game of measurement, right? When it's 4th and 1, there's a lot of stress, all right, both sides. And when there's like 5 seconds left and you got 1 snap, there's a lot of stress. So, that's part of what we do, and working hard is part of what we do. I'll share this. The discussions I had with our former players, current players, I haven't heard any complaints about working hard or how we practice and all that stuff. It's been more about policies, regulations, things of that nature. So I think the gist of it in a nutshell is, so what are the things we're choosing to emphasize? What is important? Let's make sure we keep with those. If we got to modify them, great. If we have to come up with a better way to determine what the right thing is, let's do that. But keep those in place. Keep those standards in place. But what are the things that are so like why weren't we doing tweet? I can answer that. I don't know how many guys are on our team right now, 100 plus, would disagree with me, right? And they're right and I'm wrong. So I get that, right? I get that you can't protect everybody. I think it was you, Mark, asking about the first year guys for the meeting? Or I'm sorry, Chad, were you?
Oh, yeah.
Was that you? You read my mail on it, right? And that was actually talked about over the weekend. Family, not players. They don't even know that yet. They don't care that they're older guys. But a lot of the things, just looking at things that, and I guess the best way to put it is like, where we were in '99, we needed a lot of regulations, but where we're at now, we got a bunch of guys, in my opinion, that want to win, and they know how to win. We're going to have to remind them sometimes. I get that. That's our job. We're going to have to push them on the field. That's what coaches do. If you want to be good, you have to be pushed. Any good player I've ever been around wants to be pushed. They want to be challenged. But how we do it, and just get rid of some of the stuff that I would call frivolous at this point. Like I said, I don't worry about telling these 3 guys, hey, third game's important, or whatever. Like these guys know that. So just kind of reshaping our thoughts a little bit, and really altering the things that we came to agree maybe weren't serving a real purpose, or disbanding, getting rid of them, altering them, etc. So it's been a heck of an exercise, and it's the key thing now is to keep pushing it forward.
How would you describe
Just
the
one or two
atmosphere?
more questions.
I'm sorry.
How would you describe the atmosphere right now in the strength and conditioning center changes?
I think that I'm only laughing at that. It's been voluntary up until this week, and then the other part is it's just we're the best way I can describe this. We're disjointed as a team right now. We're disjointed as a program, and again, we're hardly unique in that regard because of health restrictions and just the things that are. So it's been like unlike any summer. The closest thing I could compare it to would be back in the day when it was always voluntary. We weren't allowed to be around the strength and conditioning phase. Last summer, I would have been out to a lot of workouts by now, just watching the guys, that type of thing. So it's a very different feel. It's strange, and that even more, you got to trust your players. You got to trust that people are doing things well. Feedback I have gotten has been positive, and I am hoping to watch all 3 groups tomorrow. We're in that phase now where I get a chance to do that. So I'm looking forward to that, but I think things have been positive. I think guys are doing the things they have to do, and hopefully we're moving forward. But it's been a real challenge again because of the disjointed nature of our training as well, the quarantines and all those kinds of things.
Kirk,
and on a bigger scale, that's what concerns me as we move down the road. How are we going to be able to really get good practice in and prepare for a ball game?
Sure. What part of the meetings kind of left you inspired to change, or where you heard something you were like, you know what, I think that might need to change, or begun the process of thinking about change?
I think most of us, we heard some pretty raw and emotional talk prior to being back here on the 8th, in wake of what took place in Minneapolis and in wake of some of the other things that were going on nationally. Those were via Zoom. And, hey, Zoom is better than nothing. I'll say that about Zoom. for a guy who never heard of Zoom 3 months ago or wherever it was. But it's not the same as being in person with people, and I think that's what all of us are missing right now, including the players. You know, have our team meetings as a team in person. But that first meeting back was again, it was very powerful. And, you know, but it was genuine, it was authentic, and the way the guys responded the next day was even better. So that coupling of those 2 days was, I think, extremely, you know, made me feel good about our players, made me feel good about our staff, and I think we're taking the steps necessary right now. But, you know, it's a long road in front of us, you know, we all recognize that. And we're never going to solve the world's problems. We all get that too. But the idea, kind of like that meeting I referenced, the idea is for every one of us to come to some middle ground, hear each other out. Hey, what's fair, what's reasonable, and let's agree on it, and let's move forward. Something, again, our country really seems to struggle with right now, unfortunately. Not to give commentary, but...
Kirk, can you put something on Jack Turner?
I'm sorry?
Something on Jack Turner?
Yeah, I can just say this, that of all the events, and we've had a lot of interesting events over the last couple months, you know, that was a really hard stopping because there were very little detail. There's very little detail that morning, that Saturday morning, whatever that date would have been. I can do the math on right, but whatever it was, the 10th, 9th, something like that. So that was not a phone call I look forward to making, you know, not knowing what was at the other end. And the good news is that Jack's doing well, he's back with us and moving forward. We're doing it very cautiously. You know, it's a very traumatic experience for everybody involved, and very, you know, he was just generally sore, you know, and so you know, we're just taking our time with him, just like the other guys that have been held out. There's one last question.
Kirk, what was the communication level like between you and Jerry and the conference when they announced the conference-only schedule? Did you guys have input on that, or were you guys kind of caught a little off guard?
Yeah, no. I can only speak to the Big Ten. Just say I can only speak to Iowa, right? That's about all I know in football, other than those other 9 years. So, unless you want to get into ancient history, and the same thing, you know, basically when I've been a college coach, I've been a Big Ten college coach outside of 3 years at Maine, which is a whole different discussion, right? So this, I think our conference has really done a great job. And we started, I don't know how many years it's been now, probably 3, 4, 5, I don't know. Started doing periodic calls with the ADs and coaches, typically on Thursday mornings. So over this period of this pandemic, we've made that pretty much a routine. A couple exceptions along the road, but my point there is that I think, you know, you talk, I don't talk to a lot of other people, but hearing other guys in the Big Ten talk to people around the league, around the country, it sounds like we may be communicated as well as any conference. And again, I can't speak to that. I just know our conference. So my point is I think there's really good communication amongst the coaches, ADs. We've had a couple coaches meetings on the side, and some of those encouraged by the athletic directors to get our feedback and come back to them with some ideas, thoughts, all those types of things. But I would say it's been very, very transparent, very fluid. And then all that being said, it's like a lot of us right now in our lives in general, right? We have other people telling us, you know, hey, you may think this is a good idea, but here's what's really going to happen. And I think, you know, the end of the conversation right here is that we all look forward right now. I think, you know, a lot of this stuff's going to really be controlled by what we're allowed to do based on what the medical folks say is safe and reasonable. And that's really what's going to get down to. There are a lot of factors in play, but, you know, that's still the overarching. And it sounds like there's, you know, they're starting to pull some things together, but we're going to need a little bit more clarity here as we move on.
Thanks.